This is a showing of Seeds of Hope, and we're very lucky to have Fiona Lloyd-Davies, the director of the film, here with us this evening. But the Seeds of Hope is connected to an initiative called Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict, which was an initiative launched by the former British Foreign Secretary, William Hague. He's no longer British Foreign Secretary, but he's still leading the campaign. And he, as a politician, was very much influenced by William Wilberforce, who in the UK, you may have heard of him. He was credited with being one of the main contributors towards the abolition of the slave trade. And William Hague's written a book about him and is very heavily influenced by him. So I think when he became Foreign Secretary, he wanted to pick an issue, a global issue that he could work on and campaign on to make a difference around the world. And preventing sexual violence in conflict is the issue that he chose. He enlisted the help of a very well-known international celebrity, Angelina Jolie, to help shine a media spotlight on the issue and drum up support and raise awareness of the issue. She's also the special envoy for the UN High Commissioner on Refugees. And this culminates, well, it's an ongoing campaign, but there was a summit to mark the campaign earlier this year on June the 10th in London, which brought together representatives from over 100 governments, as well as nearly 1,000 experts from a number of different fields, including people from NGOs, and faith groups and many others besides as well, journalists as well. So at the summit, leaders who went there said that they wanted to shatter the culture of impunity that surrounds sexual violence in conflict. And to do this, one of the main things that they chose was to launch a new international protocol on international standards for documenting and investigating sexual violence. So that has been agreed upon and has come into being with over 150 governments signing up to that. In addition, at the summit, the UK pledged £6 million to support victims of sexual violence. This was channeled through a number of different means, but £1 million went through the International Criminal Court. And at the summit, William Hague made a point of saying that foreign policy isn't just about what governments do. It's no longer the preserve of just government action, but if we want to tackle global issues, then we all need to work together. And that includes people from civil society, from business, from NGOs, and journalists, and everyone coming together. So he made a big point of that, and that's part of why he's engaged the British diplomatic network to promote the campaign around the world. And we've had many events around the world on it, including some here in Canada. So this is how this has come about. I have a personal interest in the issue from my own experience. I've been posted to Afghanistan, was my last one, but also Ivory Coast. So I've been in some of these war zones, and I can see the impact of what happens. And I'm very glad to see that some of the things that are being talked about through the Preventing Sexual Violence in Conflict initiative are coming to fruition. So I follow events both in Afghanistan and Ivory Coast from time to time still. And I was interested to see that earlier this year, the head of the Young Patriots, the Jeunes Patriotes under Gbagbo, has been transferred to the International Criminal Court in The Hague and is facing charges for crimes against humanity, including for rape and other sexual-related charges. So I think that really gets to the nub of the issue, tackling impunity. So with that, I mean, you didn't come here to listen to me. You came here to see the film and listen to the panelists and Fiona. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to Lucille Smith and my team, who's done a great job in organising this event and taking the initiative to organise it. She's a former graduate of McGill, so it's appropriate that we've got it here. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Carrie Rentschler, who's the Director of the Institute for Gender, Sexuality and Feminist Studies. Thank you.
Great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for coming out on such a cold night with treacherous sidewalks. You made it. So, as Mark mentioned, I'm Carrie Rentschler. I'm Director of the Institute for Gender, Sexuality and Feminist Studies here at McGill University. Some of you may be familiar with us. For those of you that are not, we support research on gender, sexuality, and feminism. We house the teaching programs in women's studies and sexual diversity studies, and we help host events like this one tonight to foster dialogue about issues of equity, diversity, power, resistance, and survival. We're delighted to co-sponsor this evening's Canadian premiere of the documentary Seeds of Hope and the panel discussion that will follow it with filmmaker Fiona Lloyd-Davies, who we've heard is with us here tonight, and Professors Brendan Narain and Miriam Denov, and Melanie Coutu, Program Director of the Humanitarian Studies Initiative here at the university. Professor Narain will introduce the panelists right after the film viewing, where we'll turn right to the panel discussion. I especially want to thank the British Consulate for organizing and making this event possible tonight. We're really honored to have been able to play a part in bringing the film to Canada and hosting what I hope will be a lively discussion about it afterwards. The film tonight tells the story of women from the Democratic Republic of Congo who have suffered sexualized and other violence in the midst of war, and the work of Masika Kutseva, a rape survivor who brings together other survivors to collectively farm and raise their children as part of the process of healing. The film promises to be moving and powerful. Parts of it may be also difficult to watch, so I do want to offer a content warning to the audience that some viewers may find parts of the film triggering or disturbing. You will hear women describing and testifying to their experiences of violence, and you will hear assailants describing to the murderous and sexualized violence that they have committed. If you find that you do need someone to talk to tonight, there are 3 active listeners with us: Carolyn, Genevieve, and Talia. Can I ask you 3 to raise your hands for us? They're right here in the front row, to provide support if you'd like to talk to someone. Fiona is going to say a few words about the film. After the film showing, we will immediately turn to the panel discussion, after which we also invite you to join us for a reception that will be out in the foyer. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Fiona. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming, and enormous thanks to Nick and Lucy for bringing everything together, and to McGill for bringing me here in this fantastic theatre. Hopefully the film speaks for itself, but just briefly to give you a bit of background, I first went to the Eastern DRC in October 2001 after 9/11, and in fact I had wanted to go to Pakistan, but I'd made a film about honor killing and was refused a visa and was looking for somewhere else to go, and talked to Médecins Sans Frontières, and they said, you have to go to Eastern Congo. There's a virus of rape going on that nobody is reporting. And so I went out with them and flew over the jungle for an hour, landed on a grass airstrip. It was the height of the war, and the plane left, which left sort of one's heart sinking a little bit. And I stayed with Médecins Sans Frontières, small unit, for a week. And there I heard of women talking about a terrible choice they had to make of either staying at home and starve, or risk going into the fields, risk being raped and going into the fields. And obviously they had no choice really, they had to go out. And they were talking about being raped once. But since then I've gone back a number of times, and each time I went back as the war continued and then officially ended, but fighting continued, and more militia groups emerged all over different areas, was that women weren't just being raped once, it was starting to become part of their life, and they're being raped 2 or 3 times, and the girl children that they were having from being raped were also being raped. In 2009, I met Masika, and did a short bit of filming with her for the BBC, and I realised that this was a really unique, extraordinary woman who had survived a number of multiple rapes herself, but who had started the centre and had sort of created an amazing holistic program to help other survivors of sexual violence, women, children, and increasingly now more men as well. So the film was, I got a commission from Al Jazeera English in 2011 to make a short film, and out of that grew Seeds of Hope, which was made possible from a grant by the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting. So watch the film, and thank you very much for coming.
Sasa mtu anakaa kuna tembea tu unakutana na gari zinakuka mtu.
Kumkuta unampanga mengine quelque part. Unafanya utafanya na sama moto